next 90 minutes or so. Got it. All right. Well, welcome everyone. It's so nice to see you all. I'm really excited to be here to be a part of this weekend in this small way and to get to spend some time with all of you. My name is Jonathan, and I work at Wayfinding College in Portland, Oregon, which is an alternative micro college that's very self-directed, learning based, and so pretty excited to get to connect with folks this weekend and share a little bit of what we do. See if people are into it. And so since we have a pretty small group here today, I'd love to do a little bit of an intentional opening where just sort of give everyone a chance to introduce themselves briefly. I feel like when we have a smaller group that, well, we're getting bigger, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I would just really quickly love to offer the space for folks to introduce themselves, your name, your pronouns, and if you could sum up, oh, there's more people coming in the waiting room. Maybe we won't do intros because then we'll end up doing that for a whole hour. So, but if you want to type into the chat while I'm talking, your name, your pronouns, which we can also see on the screen. But also, I'd love for you to type into the chat, what's one thing that you're really passionate about? Because I think, at least in the world of wayfinding where I am in Portland, with our students and the folks that hang out with us in our community, when we start talking about directing your own learning and crafting your own path and thinking about how to live your life on purpose, which is all part of our core mission, it always comes back to that question of like, well, what are you passionate about? What do you want to explore, right? Where do you want to pour your energy into? And so it's a question that gets tossed around a lot, but it's also not an easy question to answer, right? Because it's kind of big, general, like, what are you passionate about? Well, I'm passionate about a lot of things, or what does that mean? It means different things to different people. So, but that's where I want to start, with that sort of big, general, maybe annoying question of what's your passion? So, but then today in our workshop, we're going to take one of those big general ideas of something we're passionate about, and we're going to dig into it and get down into sort of what's the root of it, or the why behind it. And that's what today is all about. It's about finding your why, which is a key part of what we do with our students at wayfinding. The idea of helping people sort of get to the root of what drives them. So no matter what it is they're doing out in the world, whatever it is they are directing their learning towards or exploring, they always know why they're doing it. They can come back to that core of, why am I doing this? Why am I showing up? What is connecting all these things that I'm passionate about? And so that's kind of what we're going to dig into today. And I have an interactive activity that I want us to do that'll sort of help us think about that for ourselves. And so I'm sure a lot of you have thought about this sort of question before and maybe have a pretty distinct idea. But I've found, and we found, it's always helpful to come back to it every once in a while and to sort of look at it from different angles and to re-clarify what that is for ourselves, especially in times of uncertainty, like now in the world where there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of questions being asked about, well, what's next? And how do I do what I want to do? And how do I connect with people out in the world when there's so much uncertainty? And finding your why and sort of distilling it down to something simple really helps with that, I find. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. And I'm really excited you're all here to join me, because personally, my why, the reason I'm here today, the reason I'm in the world, the reason I do the work that I do is my personal core why revolves around the power of connection. I really wholeheartedly believe in the power of connection as essential to everything. And so I love connecting with people. I love helping people connect with each other. I love helping people connect more with themselves and the world around them. And so I'm just excited to share that with all of you today. Yeah, so thanks for having me, and thanks for being here. Oh, let's see, did anybody toss things in the chat? Home, music, curiosity, creativity, supporting children. Oh, Hillsborough, hello, neighbor. Unschooling, cool, lots of good passions there. So folks who joined, I was just kicking it off by asking folks to toss out there in the chat, what's one thing you're really passionate about? Obviously, you probably have lots of things, and it may be hard to break it down to one thing, but just pick one thing that pops into your head. What are you passionate about? Because what we're going to do here in a minute, liberation, nice. What we're going to do here in a minute is start to dig into why. And so a lot of times in the world of education, I've found, or I've heard, that students get asked a lot, what do you want to do with your life? Which is another big, hard question. It's like, well, what do you mean? What do I want to do with my life? And so this tool that I'm going to share with you, this activity, this interactive experience we're going to have here in a moment, is sort of a way to help you answer that question by getting down to your why, which might help you lead toward what do I want to do in my life? What am I passionate about? What do I want to explore? So any questions about that to start with? Feel free to unmute and say things or type in the chat. But that's sort of the framework for what we're going to do today. I'm going to offer a tool and activity. We're going to work through it starting as a group, but then we're going to go into small breakout rooms, into small groups where you can work with each other and sort of conversationally get to your why, or uncover your why, or clarify your why. I see a raised hand.
Hey, Jonathan.
Yes.
I'm just curious, like, what your experience is doing this process with different ages. Like, and also, I think we're kind of a mixed age group here just by the visuals. Like, I'm solidly in midlife, and like that, the fact that I am still asking myself this question, well, it's in part because I finished raising and home educating my kids, and now I'm like, and now what the heck am I gonna do with my life, and maybe hopefully get paid for it. So yeah, so I just kind of interested in your your experience on doing this with different age groups, and yeah, there's the question.
That's a great question. Yeah. Well, this particular activity, but also this topic of conversation, I've explored it with people of all ages personally, and then also, well, as young as, so I have a 7-year-old, and so I try to have these sort of conversations with my 7-year-old all the time, and as you can imagine, there's mixed results. But then, sort of daily at Wayfinding College where I work, we're having these conversations and using this sort of way of exploring with 18 to 40-year-olds all the time. And then I also have done a version of this workshop quite a few times during the pandemic virtually with people of all different ages. We did one in Portland here earlier this year through the public library system, where it was like this. It was a collection of people from all over of different ages. And I find, and you're right, I find that it doesn't matter how old you are, what stage of life you are, it can always be a powerful, important process to just pause and to reassess and think about, why am I doing what I'm doing, or what is driving me? What's at the core of my passions and my purpose? Whether you've thought about it a lot before or not. And so I do want to acknowledge that there might be some folks in the room here who are like, oh, I've never thought about that question. And some other people are like, oh my God, I've been thinking about that question for 40 years. I already have like everything dialed in, and that's great. I think, and that's part of why here in a moment, when we kick it off, I'm going to empower everyone to call on your own experience to help each other too. And when we go into small breakout rooms, you might have a mix of experience to help each other with too, as you sort of use this tool that I'm about to share with you. And Renee says, I've been thinking about this question for years and I don't have it dialed in. I hear you. Yes, me too. And that's the thing too, is I think this is the kind of question that evolves too, right? Like our core, what drives us is based on values, our interests, our experiences, our relationships, and those things often change, right? And so, and we change and grow constantly. And so this is the kind of, I do this regularly, both with my students and personally too. And so just to look ahead, the end result of this activity is potentially having crafted what I call or what we call a why statement. It's sort of our version of a vision statement, but more specific to your personal why. And the thing I love about this too is a lot of you probably have these sort of things crafted for yourself. The thing you can come back to that's sort of like your anchor whenever you have, when you're in times of uncertainty or you're trying something new and you want to make sure you're on the right path, or you're educating your children and you want to make sure, am I headed the right direction? Coming back to this core why, but that's something that can change and develop all the time. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. I will say I'm not the world's most tech savvy person. I'm much more of a relationship person. So if this doesn't work, then I will wing it. Hey, I think it's working. Can everybody see my screen? Great. Some nice Wayfinding green. So coming back to this question, what am I passionate about? And so some folks have already started putting that in the chat. Some people are thinking about it. I'm sure some of you are like, well, where do I start, right? It's kind of like that same question that gets tossed out there in the world of what do you do? It's like, well, where do I start? What do? I do a lot of things. But I want to give you an opportunity to maybe think about this in a different way today, maybe from a different angle. So if you have something to write with, awesome, or anything to sort of collect your thoughts, however you like to process, I'm gonna offer you a series of questions here, some prompts that are gonna kind of come at this question of what am I passionate about from a few different directions. And so, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna verbalize them. I'm going to say them out loud, but I'm also going to put them on the screen for those of you that want to be able to read them. And then I'm going to give you about 2 minutes or so to just reflect on that question and to, jot something down if you want to, and just to think about that question. So for example, if I can, technology already failing me. Let's see. Technology is the worst sometimes and the best sometimes. Well,
lots of beeping.
Do you hear all my beeps? Oh, how
yeah,
you did advance one slide. You went forward once.
Except that was, there we go. Oh, whew. Has anyone else had this experience when you have a slide, but if you don't touch it for a while, it like freezes? So I'm just going to keep moving my cursor. That's my secret. So if you see my cursor dancing in the corner, feel free to dance along. So, okay, question number 1. What issues, causes, organizations, or communities are most important to me, to me? And maybe the answers to that are obvious to you, maybe they're not. So I want you to take a good 2 minutes to just sort of write down whatever comes up for you. What issues, causes, organizations, and communities are most important to me? And if the answer was obvious to you and it popped out immediately, maybe see what else comes out if you just start writing on the paper. See if there are other things that pop up that maybe surprise you or that weren't the first thing that popped into your head. What are those issues, causes, organizations, communities most important to you? Down as much as you can. Okay, it's been about 2 minutes. So I'm going to put the second one up. If you're still reflecting on the first one, that's great. Keep going. But for those of you who are ready, the next prompt, what group of people do I have a special affinity and love for? What group of people do I have a special affinity and love for? So take a couple minutes just to reflect on that and write down whatever comes up for you. right, it's been just about 2 minutes, so I'm going to put the next one up, the next prompt. There's going to be 4 of these, so we're almost there. The next question to think about: when I am most energized and focused, what am I working on, or what am I doing? So when you are the most energized and focused, what are you doing, or what are you working on? So again, whatever comes up for you when you think about that, jot it down. Whether it feels like the right answer to you or not, there is no right answer. Just jot down whatever comes up. All right, it's been about 2 minutes. So I'm going to put the 4th one up. Somebody have a question? Feel free to interrupt me at any point, by the way. I'm great with interruptions. I have a 7-year-old, so I'm used to it. So the last question, what do I like so much I would do it for free? I have mixed feelings about this question. It's one of those questions that I think gets tossed around a lot, but I also think there's some good reflection that can come out of it. So take a moment and think about that. What's something that you like so much, or you're so driven to do, that you're going to do it no matter what, whether it's a part of your job or whether you're getting paid to do it, something you know you're always going to do. What do you like so much you would do it for free? Take a couple minutes just to see what comes up and jot it down. So as folks are sort of wrapping up their reflection on these 4 prompts, maybe give me a thumbs up, either visually or a little emoji thing, when you feel like you have had enough time and you're like, yep, I got some stuff reflected on for these, and I'm ready for the next step. Because I don't want to rush anybody if you're in good reflection mode. So. Ooh, getting creative with the fireworks even. All right. Excellent. All right, so what I want you to do, we've got a chat, like having, I like not having too much time to think about this and just write down whatever comes up. Nice. I like that. Yeah, if there's a fine balance between giving yourself too much time and just sort of going with what pops up immediately. I like that. So we're going to move on then. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to look down at what you wrote, or if you didn't write it down, sort of reflect back on it. So look back over, reflect over all of the things that just came out of those questions that you had some time to see what popped out of your brain. And I want you to see if you notice, and maybe you already have noticed, maybe it was obvious or maybe not. I want you to see if you notice any patterns or any themes across your answers, or maybe something that popped up multiple times, or any just relation between your answers, connection. So like, for example, the first time I did this years ago, I immediately noticed what I mentioned to you all before, connection. The theme of connection popped up in every one of my answers some way, whether it was organizations that were all about connection, or people that I really enjoyed connecting with, or I was most energized and focused when I was connecting with people, for example. So see if you have any, and maybe it's just a word that pops up in every answer, or maybe it's an underlying theme or pattern. I don't know. Take a moment and see if you can find one or more than one of those. And if you do, write those down, or highlight them, or circle them, or something. You know, it may be something as simple as music, or the outdoors, or writing, or maybe it's something a little more complicated. But whatever you see, sometimes I think of it as the common thread through your answers, something that ties them all together. Maybe that's not so obvious, or maybe that is. I'm curious, does anybody have one that jumped off the page of you that was immediately obvious? Like, oh yeah, here's the pattern, here's the thread. And if you do and feel like sharing it, feel free to type it in the chat or verbalize it however you want to. I'm curious if anybody had one that was right there. Let's see if things popping into the chat. Organizing, planning, connecting, community, connection, creativity, stewardship, family and home, exploring ideas, being with, supporting, connecting with kids, family, parents, caregivers, self-evolution, self-expression. Yes, these are all fabulous, fascinating. I love it. Okay, so hopefully everybody found at least one of those things that sort of rose out of those answers. And if you found multiple different things, multiple threads, I want you to take a look and maybe pick out the one that feels the most present for you today, or in this moment, the one that you're like, that's the one I kind of want to dig into today. So if you had multiple things, take a moment and think about, well, which is the one that I want to focus on right now that feels the most present for me in this moment, whether it's connection or community or family or self-evolution. And I want you to take that one thing and I want you to write it down all by itself, so you can look at just that without the other things around. Because that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to focus on for what we call the 5 whys. And so the 5 whys is there's various different versions of this idea of the 5 whys out there in the world. And this one that I'm going to share with you today is a version that Michelle Jones, the president and founder of Wayfinding College, my boss, my colleague, sort of crafted and adapted to fit how she was working with youth as a college professor over the years, and which led her to sort of see what she thought were sort of the holes and flaws in higher education in this society, and to create a new college, a micro alternative college, or experimental college we call it sometimes, where we try to do things a little differently, as I'm sure you're all doing in your own ways too. And so this is sort of our version of this. So you might have done something similar before, or not, I don't know. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take that one thing that you decided to focus on today, that maybe is something you're passionate about. Maybe it's just something you're driven by. Maybe it's sort of like, that's kind of my why. But we're going to get deeper into it with the 5 whys. And so what that's going to look like here in a minute is we're going to basically ask ourselves and each other why 5 times, but in a very specific way, so that we can take that thing that we've just identified as, something we're passionate about, and we're going to dig into it several layers deep to kind of see what's underneath that and why. And I'm going to give you a demonstration. So I'm going to toss out there the opportunity for somebody that wants to be put on the spot to volunteer, because what I'd love to do is to take the next few minutes to go through the 5 whys, sort of facilitate someone through the 5 whys and show one way that you can do it before we separate into small groups and breakout rooms, and you sort of help each other go through it in the way that works for you. So that said, I'd also like to say, I meant to say this up front, but for this activity, for us to get the most out of this, there's really only 2 things I ask of you, and that's to be yourself, just to be your authentic whole self, and then 2, to participate in the way that works best for you personally. And that's the 2 things that I ask. And so what that means is when we start doing this and we go into small groups, if you're comfortable having your video on and talking to other people, great. If you want to have your video off and doing the chat, or if you just want to observe, let people know that, whatever works for you today. I want you to engage in the way that feels good for you. And, I also invite people to, step out of your comfort zone a little bit and stretch yourself in the way that works for you today too. But I want everyone to engage in the way that works for you.
What's your favorite kind of
And so that being said, is there anybody that feels like engaging fully for you today is volunteering to be put on the spot? I saw one hand raised a minute ago on my screen, and I believe that was, when I'm sharing my screen, I have a hard time seeing people's names. Renee. Is Renee? Yeah. Renee. All right. So Renee, you're willing to be put on the spot?
I am. I mean, I don't want to take the opportunity away from somebody else. But I was like, oh, hey, I need all the help I can get. So I'm here for it.
Let's do it. I love, because we've already had a little dialogue and you already vocalized that you're like, I've been asking this question for years and I still have no idea. So this is great. Let's do it. I love it.
I think though, also, I think I actually know more, but I just have a hard time trusting myself and my intuition. That's actually a thing for me. I think I actually know more about who I am and what I want. I just don't trust it.
I'm sure you do. And actually, that's one of the things I love about this 5 whys, is that I think we all know our why deep down, whether we realize it or not. Sometimes we just have to sort of scrape a bunch of the stuff that's covering it up off. And that's hopefully what this can help people start to do. It's not a magic wand, obviously, but it's one way to look at, how do I get to the core of why I do what I do, so that I can keep that present in every decision I make and everything I do. And so we're going to try it. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Renee. I'm going to guide you through the 5 whys as a quick demonstration. And then we're going to break into some small groups of 2 to 4 people and help each other through it for a bit. And then we'll come back to the big group and kind of share what came out of it, and talk about what we could do next with that, or not. And any questions before we toss Renee into the fire, metaphorically?
I don't have a question, but I do want to say that, like, I have multiples, but you said we had to choose one. So I'm choosing that. But like, I resist also the idea that I have to choose one.
Of course.
I'm making that very clear.
And you don't have to choose one. So, well, what's the one that you force yourself to choose? Let's start with that.
I'm choosing exploring ideas.
Cool. What were some of the other things that you were like, I don't want to give this up?
Family and home. Cool. I mean, but those are the main 2 ones, like, that show up in the like consistently.
Cool. All right. Well, let's go with exploring ideas. And something that I've experienced with this activity before too is that when people are often in the situation you're saying, we're like, well, I'm picking this one, but they're all important to me. Is that as we go through the 5 whys, the other ones seep back in anyway, which is kind of wonderful. So exploring ideas, that's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you ready for the 5 whys, Renee?
Sure.
Basically, I'm going to ask you why 5 times, but I'm going to do it in a very specific, intentional way based on each thing you tell me. And I'm sort of going to pull out what I think is the core of each of your answers and refine and dig a little deeper. Okay. So we'll see how it goes. So I guess right off the bat, exploring ideas. I want you to take a moment and just think about, why is exploring ideas so important to you? What about exploring ideas is important to you? Why is that important?
It makes me feel alive. I feel very alive. Like when you asked the question, the last one about the energizing, or no, the third one, like, no, maybe, I can't remember where you said something about when I'm most energized and focused, what am I working on? I feel alive, and I like that feeling. I mean, I also identified that there's other times where I feel like content and at ease, and that's not the same. Or it's an aliveness.
Yes, I love it. I love how you put that. Okay, number 2. Why number 2? Are you ready?
Yep.
So why is it so important for you to feel alive?
Oh my God. Okay, this is like, I don't even know where this is coming from, but I'm a thinker and I live in my head. But actually, like, exploring ideas also triggers things in my, like, I feel alive, like, not like I'm just a thinking head or a think, but I'm like, it's a physical, it actually triggers physical things in me. Like a heightened sense of interest and energy, and which seems kind of weird because it's in my head, but I think I'm looking for that kind of like, when do I actually feel something?
Yes. All right, Renee, you're making this easy for me. This is great. I love it. So that, to me, the thing that stood out of that last answer was feel. And so the third why is it so important to you to feel beyond just being in your head, to feel?
I don't know. That one feels very loopy. It feels like it loops back to being alive. Like it feels like a loop. So, I mean, feeling like, and what's interesting about this is I'm actually a fairly emotional person also. So I feel things deeply. Like I feel grief about so many things. Like so I think in this case, exploring ideas helps me feel energized and hope, and maybe more hopeful, and like possibilities, and versus the feeling of like of overwhelm and negativity. I don't know. I mean,
I gotcha. No, I like that. I like that, how you, because what you did is you went from feeling alive to feeling energy, and then you brought in the word hopeful and possibilities. And so we're getting a little below there. I like that. So the next why here, number 4, did I skip one, or number 3? I'm not good at counting, by the way.
Yeah, you've already done 3.
So why number 4? I want you to think about that idea of hope, energy and hope, because you sort of tie those together. And I want you to think about, why is it important for you to feel that energy and to feel hopeful? Why is that important to you, to feel energized and hopeful?
Because I'm not naturally in that position. I like so much feel like I'm not a glass half full person. I'm a glass half empty person. I'm quite pessimistic. I see the world, I don't know, like I'm just looking maybe I'm just looking for like ways to feel better about the about things. I don't know. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. All right, so just to recap your answer, as I think about where to go with this, the first thing you said is it's not natural. This idea of feeling energized and hopeful is not your natural state, that you describe yourself as a naturally pessimistic, or some might say a realist, maybe. I don't know.
And I'm a skeptic. I am like a born skeptic of so many things. Anyways.
So I guess the question I think about then too is, for this last why, is to think about that right there. If you feel like that's how you naturally are, but you feel more alive and hopeful when you force yourself to not feel that way, to not just settle with your natural state. Why do you think that's important for you to keep doing that? Or why is that important for you to get out of your natural state and feel alive and feel hopeful?
Well, I mean, there's like personal reasons why, because who wants to feel that way? But also, like, I feel like in my relationships and in my connections with people, because that's also really important to me. I want to be the person who's going to bring some of that into bring positive things.
Yeah, see, there it is. It's the things that you left behind at the beginning that are coming back into the end. Excellent. All right. So 5 whys. We could keep going, but 5 is a good number. And so what I want you to do is to think back over that progression we just did. And if you jotted any of those down, you can look over them. If you didn't, I jotted down some key thoughts I can share with you. But I want you to do is look at where you started, the idea of exploring ideas and also family and connections, and follow that progression down and see if you can find that sort of thread that runs down through it. And what I'm going to ask you to do, and this is the part that's hard to do on the spot really fast, but do your best, is I want you to see if you can take that and create it into just a simple sentence that sort of sums that up, that sort of thread from the top down to the bottom there. And so I'm going to share my screen to give you a little bit of assistance here again, because this is, so we just did the 5 whys, and then this is sort of beginning to craft a why statement. And sometimes it's easier to start with some sort of sentence completion, like, oh, the world would be a better place if, or if my passion were reality, the world would look like ... or I intend to ... something like that. And those are just examples. You can start it any way.
Come up with this statement. This is the part where I want to quit, because I'm like,
I know, right?
I'm like, and also my answers seemed like they were wrong somehow. And
well, they were not. There is no right or wrong answer. That's the thing. Oh, did you freeze? I think we lost Renee. How convenient that she froze right when we were going to make her do the hard part.
I would just, if I could interject and just say, for Renee can still hear, like, as a listener, it felt really like it didn't feel wrong at all. It was like, oh yeah, like I see. I think when I'm on the spot, you're the one doing it. It's like, oh, you're grasping, but it felt very flowy and made sense and cool to watch.
Yes, 100%. I agree with you. And that's why I really like doing this in groups. This is an activity you can do on your own. And for some people who process, internally and want to write and think, that works well. But I think there's a power to doing this with other people who can witness and hear the things that you say in a different way and catch them and bring them back to you. And so Renee, if you can hear us, the reason I wanted to do this in a group is that it's not all on you. You have folks now to help you, because what we're going to do here in a moment, I'm going to whisk you away to breakout world into rooms of 2, 3 or 4 people in a room. And I'm going to ask you to do this together. The 5 whys, help each other through it. And you get to sort of advocate for yourself how you want to do it. If you want somebody else to ask you the 5 whys like I did, if you want to just sort of do the 5 whys yourself and then share with everybody else and have them like help you craft it. But the idea being you'll have a few other people to hear what you put out there and help you reframe it into some sort of statement sentence. And I also want to put out there's no right answer. You're not going to feel like, yes, this is the perfect statement at the end of this experience, but it's just sort of something to think about and get you started. Is Renee back, or is she? I can't see.
I'm here. I ironically totally lost connection. Like it wasn't even like I hit leave, but I honestly did not know how to answer that question. And then I just lost connection.
I know, it was perfect timing. But when you were off connection, I can't see the name of the other person, but somebody else pointed out that what they heard you saying didn't sound wrong. It sounded like it flowed very well and it fit very well. And that's what I was just saying, that the power of doing this in a group with other people is that people can catch what you're putting out there and direct it back to you in a way that makes more sense. Because when we say these things from ourselves, like we're immediately often resistant, like, oh, that doesn't sound right, or that can't be right, or And so that's sort of the power of doing this in group. And so, so when we go into small groups here in a moment, Renee, the folks around you can help you take what you did and put it into a statement, or begin crafting into a statement. And I say statement loosely because, you know, it might be a paragraph, it might be a phrase, it might be a word. We'll see. Ooh, I want to see what the chat. We need to explore and understand colonial schooling, unschooling, because we want to find a positive solution for a better and healthier world. Ooh, thanks, Margaret. Was that?
Well, that's just, it was funny when she was speaking, you said connection. So then I started to think of connection. But what I heard in Renee was that we're in our heads, we're in our thoughts a lot because we want to feel, we're thinking about things. We feel alive when we feel like we're discussing things, and there are great things to think about. Colonial unschooling, what is it that we don't like about the way we treat our children, educate the planet, because it has repercussions for all of us. And so we're all trying to find some solutions, but we have to have the thought and the interaction and the connections, and to make a better world, both healthier and happier. So when I heard everything, it sort of, that sentence just came out.
Nice, I like it. And that's beautiful. And that's kind of what I'm going to ask you to do in the small groups here in a moment, is to help each other how you want to be helped. And if you want people to help take your thoughts and help you put them into words, that's great. And so that being said, are there any questions about what we're about to do? In a moment here, you're gonna pop into a breakout room with a few other folks, and I'm gonna give you about, let's see, let me check the time. I'll give you about 30 minutes, which may be more than enough time, maybe not enough time. We'll see. I'll give you about 30 minutes, and within those 30 minutes, the small group, you can decide as a small group how you want to do this. If you want to all focus on one person at a time, or if you want to each do your own thing, or if you want to bounce back and forth. The idea being that you're going to go through the 5 whys for each person or collectively, and then hopefully help each other craft some sort of rough draft of a statement-y type thing.
Jonathan, are you going to send us that list that you gave to me, that you used on me? Like, well, because you said this word, then this thing, are you going to provide us with that?
Well,
because I don't remember how you walked me through that. Like, I'm like, what am I supposed to ask people?
Well, so really, it's as simple as just asking why 5 times, but directing the why toward the key part of what you said. And so, for example, you started off by saying exploring ideas. And so the first thing I asked you was just, well, why is exploring ideas important to you?
Okay.
And then what you came out of that, feeling alive was the key phrase. And so I asked, well, why is feeling alive important to you?
Okay.
So it's really just,
why is that main idea from your last answer important to you? And you just
why is that important to you? Or why is that significant? Or why did you say that? You know? And so it's kind of just taking the core of each thing and digging into it a little deeper. And there's no like right or wrong way to do that. The way I did it is just kind of the way I like to. I see a hand raised.
Yeah, I just have I do better with examples, even though sorry, can't talk. I don't think that we actually, Margaret suggested an example, but do you have any other just statement examples, even just like 1 or 2 that would?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like that was a great segue. I'm about to share with you my statement as an example. So, and this is one that I've been honing and crafting over the years. Basically, every time I do this, I tinker with my statement. And so I've refined it down to something pretty simple, and it did not start that way. So my really refined, simple why statement is the following. I intend to make the world a more understanding and empathetic place, one authentic connection at a time. So that's my statement. And it started, I can actually read you the very first version I wrote years ago, which was much more complicated. It was, I dream of a world full of connection and community, where everyone feels genuinely connected to their true selves and to those around them. I deeply believe that all humans inherently need true connection and acceptance, and that the world would be a healthier place for all, full of love and meaning, if we made a conscious effort to connect more intentionally with ourselves, our community, and the world around us. I intend to make the world a more empathetic and understanding place, one authentic connection at a time. So mine started as a paragraph, and then I distilled it down to the one sort of sentence that summed it up for me. And the idea being that I can refer back to that sentence in times where I'm unsure of what to do next, or I have a conflict that I need to work through. And if I come back to that, it reminds me, oh, this is how I want to show up. This is at the core of my why. So that's one example.
Can you write that, or can somebody write that? Did somebody write that down?
I can type some stuff into the chat here.
I just want examples. Like I just I want things written out for me.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry to
No problem. Yes, and this is one of the limitations of being in the virtual world. When I do this in person with groups, I pass out multiple examples, and one of the limitations of the virtual world is, yeah. All right, any other questions as I type this in?
Nicole is raising her hand. No? Maybe it was a mistake.
Okay.
Sorry, I was talking to my kid and I forgot I was on camera. So I was I raised my hand earlier and I had a question, but if you saw me, yeah, that was me talking to someone. I just put a note in the chat.
Oh, yes, Janice. Ooh, look at you.
I have done it from that before, so.
Perfect, yes.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, here, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Whew. Yes, so Janice just linked to a page on our website where you can click on the Google document, which I could also share that right now, but you put the link in there. Yeah, so there's a Google document, which actually a PDF, which actually I might, if I can figure out how to do this, I might email it all to you after this too, so you can have a copy of this. And it also has a little bit more so that you can use it for yourself, or if you want to use it with your students or children or whoever. Yeah, I'll share that later too. But yeah, feel free to go to that link that Janice may have just put in the chat. Yeah, there you go. But here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go into the small groups and we're gonna help each other work through this. And then we're gonna come back for the last 10 or 15 minutes and see what came up for people, see if people craft this statement or if something interesting popped up for you, and we'll reflect on it a little bit. And then maybe we'll talk about, cool, what do I do with this next? Or how can I use this? And then we'll wrap up. Sound good?
Do you want people to be able to choose their room or just automatically assign?
Ooh, I think randomizing would be ideal. But I don't know, does anybody have a strong preference? I think it's easier just to have people go randomly into a room of 3 to 4 people.
All right. That work for people? No. Oh no. Open all rooms. Got it. Okay. That's what I needed to do.
Hey, Nicole.
Almost. All right, 5 seconds. Everyone will be forced to come back. Welcome back. All right, welcome back, everyone. I think everyone is back. I'm sorry for folks that got cut off. I hate cutting people off, but unfortunately, we're almost out of time. And so I wanted to give us some time to come back together as a big group and maybe share what came out of that experience, or to reflect on it a little bit, and then maybe talk about, cool, what can we do next with this? So I guess first I'd love to just open up the floor to anybody who wants to share. Let's start with just immediate reflections. How was that? How did it go? Was it hard? Was it easy? Was it fun? Was it insightful? Was it not any of those things? Anybody want to share?
I found it insightful and also a little uncomfortable.
Thanks for sharing, Andrew. And Chavi says it was not easy. Anyone else have thoughts? So there was a little uncomfortable, kind of insightful, not easy.
I thought it was inspiring. It was incredibly inspiring to hear from others the why.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
I really liked the process. I think it felt very good to speak out loud what your mind is thinking all the time, because sometimes it's like a consistent thought, like that you need to say. Also, I found out that sometimes your why comes from pain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you're like in a way suffering from something, or you see that you're lacking of something, and you want to, like, you know, like walk in another direction towards joy, towards love, and you want to share that with others. So I thought that was a good a beautiful finding for me.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else have any thoughts to share, reflections on the experience itself?
You just have to I had to get over it's like the process of it is so useful. You have to get over, like, it's like asking, well, why is joy important? Like, it's just like, well, why isn't it? Like, it was like I had this resistance almost, like, well, that's a stupid question. Why wouldn't it be? But it's not about that necessarily. It's like uncovering something below, like digging down a little bit more and out. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, sometimes I think of it as we live in a society that sort of trains us not to ask why. So sometimes we're like fighting against this impulse, like, why would I ask why? That's just how it is. And it's like, wait a second. And so actually at Wayfinding, when we have students come in and we start basically helping them unlearn what they've learned about learning and how to be a student, part of it is like training people how to ask why. And that's like an important part of learning and exploring, is asking why and demanding an answer. If people don't have it, be like, you should know why we're doing this.
I feel like going through this process, I really appreciate the process a lot. I feel like going through this process of the 5 levels of whys brings out people's stories, and I really love listening to people's stories, like our own individual journey, and being more self-aware of my own story as well. It's like we have a story to tell other folks, and that, like, I feel like that's powerful. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. The power of story is so real. And it's at the heart of connection, I think. When you can share your story with another person and be heard and be seen, that's so powerful. Thank you, everyone, for being open to that and sharing little bits of your story with each other, even if it's uncomfortable. Like, I know that's also part of the power, is embracing a little bit of discomfort and letting yourself stretch in the way that works for you. And that's, I mean, as you all know, I think, you know, that's part of self-directed learning, right? Is finding ways to stretch yourself and grow. And so thank you for doing that. I'm curious, we have a couple minutes left. Is there anybody that wants to share a statement or a rough draft? Oh, I want to say too that it's totally, as much as it would be awesome if everyone had like a nice, perfect statement that came out of this, that's not how it works. And you may not have a statement, and that's fine. And there's no perfect right ending to this. It's kind of an ongoing forever process, right? And but if anybody has something that you want to share, like a statement or a phrase or a jumbled paragraph or whatever, I just wanted to give the space for anybody to share what came out of that for you, if you want to, either verbally or typing it in, or you know. And if you don't want to, that's totally okay also. But is there anybody that feels moved to share something? An end result of that? All right, there's one in the chat. Ooh, thank you. Lovely. Renee, can I put you on the spot again?
Sure, you can. I don't have any phrase for you, but you can.
Oh, no worries. I'm just wanted to ask you what came out of working through that with other people? Did anything come out of it?
Well, mostly because you had already asked me the questions when in our group, the other people went through the questions, and then we just had great conversations
Nice.
around that. And also like down with capitalism was the general. Anyways, there was lots of, and neoliberalism and all the rest. So it was a good conversation. That's all I have to say.
Speaking of down with capitalism, for anyone who's in Portland, at Wayfinding, we offer labs, which are workshops that are open to our students, but also the public. And we have one that's creative alternatives to capitalism that's coming up later this winter. So if anybody's local and wants to come learn with some students about how we replace capitalism.
I mean, I'd love to know more about how, and maybe it's this experience, but how to apply this, or tips and tricks or whatever of applying this with teens or younger people.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, we have 2 minutes left, and apparently we're going to get shuffled out of here automatically in 2 minutes. So first, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure connecting with you. If we get cut off, I want to say that. And if anybody has any questions for me, I'll throw my email in the chat, or Janice has shared the link to our website. You can find me on there too. But I'm always happy to connect with people and talk about anything and everything. And so I love connection, obviously. But then as far as what do we do with this? So this, like I mentioned earlier, this is a tool. It's just a tool that can be used in different ways. And I use it with students just to get a conversation started and to help them start thinking about how to ask the right questions and how to like dig a little deeper. And it sort of just helps set them up for more introspective exploration. And so for those of you that work with younger folks, I think it could be a good way to start introducing to young folks how to ask these type of questions. And so, but I think the key thing is what to do with this next. So for those of you that have like, ooh, I want to explore this more, I want to share this with other people, you can take that PDF and share that. You can alter that, you can break it down, simplify it. It's really just a starting place. But the thing that I guess the main takeaway that I would love to sort of share with everyone right now is to think about the process itself is great, but if you don't take action on it afterward, then it's kind of, it doesn't really do much. And so I think the one thought I would share with everybody right now is what action are you going to take right now based on this experience today? What's one, and it might be a really simple, small action, like I'm going to go share with my partner or my kid what phrase I just got out of this or whatever, or I'm going to go share my new view on the importance of why with someone, or I'm going to whatever. So I'd love for everyone to take a moment, just think about what's the next first small action you're going to take with this idea of finding your why. And that's kind of what I would leave you with. And then practically, I would say, I think having this conversation with yourself regularly is pretty important, just to stay in tune with your own why. And like other people here mentioned, having that conversation with other people in groups and verbalizing it and getting it out of your head, I think is also so important to like making it tangible. And then there's also that connection of sharing stories with each other. And so I think that in of itself is a great way to use this. And then those of you that work with young learners, whether it's your family or students, finding a way to adapt this for you, I think is a good idea too. But I don't know if that answered your question, Nicole. That was a little meandering, and I guess we didn't get kicked out at 11:30.
I'm gonna go download the PDF and like dig a little bit more and play around with that resource. So thank you.
Sure. Yeah. And feel free to reach out to me. I think my email was just dropped in there. That should work. We actually Wayfinding we changed our name last month. So we're Wayfinding College now. We were Wayfinding Academy, but that was confusing to a lot of people who were unsure that we were a college. They're like, wait, are you a preschool? But that will still work. It all goes to the same place. But
I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, feel free to check out our website and see if there's anything else interesting, and reach out to me if anyone wants to connect or talk. And it's been a pleasure to join you all today. Thanks so much for spending time with me.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I'll see you in some of the other sessions.
Thanks so much for being here, everyone. Thank you, Jonathan. That was super fun.